Hello, this video will cover some basic terms that will be useful for you as you design your curriculum. The terms include curriculum, scaffolding, lesson, unit, scope, and sequence. So a curriculum is a sequence of instruction in a particular subject area designed to meet the instructor's or the school's learning goals. And we'll include the definition of sequence here, which is the order of the content that will be taught. Scaffolding is a concept conceived of by Lev Vygotsky, and it means that when you scaffold your curriculum, you start with simple ideas and you move students towards greater understanding. So I like to use the visual of a spiral, where at the beginning, you're just introducing some basic ideas, basic concepts, basic knowledge. And as you move through your lesson, your unit, your semester, or your year, you start to build off of those basic ideas and introduce students to more intermediate skills, intermediate concepts, intermediate knowledge, and ultimately move them toward learning advanced skills, advanced concepts, and advanced knowledge. So a lesson includes the details of a teacher's education plan that will guide instruction. So lessons can be created daily or as a sequence of lessons. And this diagram shows us how lessons could be scaffolded, right? To introduce basic ideas, perhaps in lesson number one, and then to build off of those ideas in subsequent lessons to move students toward more advanced knowledge. And a unit consists of concepts and learning goals that are taught over a period of time and are woven together, often across subject areas. And a unit plan lasts 2 or 3 weeks, or it could be longer, and includes several standards, skills, and desired outcomes for interconnected learning. And again, we could use the spiral diagram to show how you can scaffold your units to introduce students to some basic content and basic knowledge in Unit 1, and then move them toward more advanced and complex knowledge as they move throughout the semester or throughout the year. So I'm now going to talk about scope and sequence. So the definition of scope is the depth and the breadth of the content in a given subject. So the depth is how basic or how advanced you want to go into teaching a particular concept in your curriculum. And the breadth is the variety of ideas that could be taught in your curriculum. And as the teacher, you get to decide, how deep you want to go into to a particular concept or idea, and how broad you want to go. The different types of uh, variety in the breadth. So instructors must consider what students will learn at a particular grade level and then across grade levels. And this is important because you want to make sure that um, your curriculum that you're designing is developmentally appropriate as well as culturally relevant. So again, the definition of sequence is the order of the content that will be taught at the grade level and then across grade levels. And I'm going to show you 3 examples of how you might visualize this. So in example 1, we'll use the idea of teaching color in an art education curriculum. And this is showing us what we could potentially teach at different grade levels. Right? So if we're thinking about introducing basic ideas or basic knowledge when it comes to color, we'll start down at kindergarten and first grade, and that's just like identifying color. Right? And as we continue to teach about color, perhaps in kindergarten through second grade, we'll talk about how to mix colors, and we'll talk about how to mix secondary colors. And then perhaps the next level up is we'll talk about how to mix tints and shades by adding some white and black. So that's talking about value and color together. And then as we move up, so now we're in sort of an intermediate level of the spiral, we might be introducing students into how to identify and design with color categories. Perhaps it's warm and cool. At the more advanced level, it might be complementary colors. And then once students sort of have a handle on color, right, in terms of identifying color, mixing color, putting color into different categories, they may then attempt to take their knowledge of color and apply it to different subject matter in the arts. So that's advanced knowledge that we would teach in, say, perhaps grades 2 through 5. And again, as the instructor, you're going to decide what's most appropriate for your students. So perhaps in this moving towards advanced knowledge, students are applying local color to creating still lifes, landscapes, or portraits. And again, you would decide: is it still lifes? Is it landscapes? Is it portraits? You know, you would design that curriculum, and then. Maybe in grades 4 and 5, students will start to think about how color is associated with different moods and emotions, and perhaps they'll start experimenting with making some abstract images. So this is an example of a scope and sequence in teaching color and introducing it across different grade levels. So then the second example would show us how we might teach color, perhaps as a color unit, to say grade 5, thinking about moving from some basic concepts where students might already have this knowledge because you've taught them in K through 4, but you're reintroducing the knowledge so that they could go into greater depth with what they're learning. So maybe in week 1, you again identify colors. In week 2, they start mixing colors. 2 and 3, weeks 2 and 3, they start mixing colors. So first it's the secondary colors, and then it's thinking about color and value together. And then in week 4, they start to create color categories. Again, thinking about warm, cool. It could be complementary. It could be tertiary colors. And then in weeks 5 through 7, they might apply what they're learning about color again to a still life, a landscape, or a portrait painting. And then in week 8, they select a color to show a particular emotion or mood, and then they create an abstract artwork about that. So this example shows us that if you were to teach this color unit, you'd be going really into depth with grade 5 when it comes to color. And now the last scope and sequence shows how you might vary the breadth of what grade 5 might learn. So instead of focusing, say, for example, really in depth on a particular concept like color, you have an opportunity to play around with different ideas and different materials with grade 5. And so you would design maybe a semester or a year where different units, students will learn about different ideas matched with different materials. So, for example, maybe in Unit 1, they explore color and tempera paint. In Unit 2, they explore line and markers. In Unit 3, they explore shape, pattern, and texture and printmaking. In Unit 4, they explore landscape or cityscape with collage. In Unit 5, they create pet portraits and create clay sculptures. And then in Unit 6, they might create mythological creatures with paper mache. So when you think about scope and sequence, you might think, well, what did I teach the students in grade 4, and what did I teach them in grade 3? Perhaps it was grade 3 when you introduced clay. So students had that experience in grade 3. Now you're reintroducing it in grade 5. So what now do you need to teach at this grade level that would move them toward advanced thinking in clay when they're creating their pet portraits? So you're constantly going back and forth between thinking about what students already learned, where are they developmentally, what's culturally relevant for them, and where do I want them to move toward? What advanced skills do I want them to acquire? So I hope going over these terms was helpful for you. And as you design your curriculum, you can consider visualizing your curriculum using this spiral diagram. And if you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me in the comments.